Good morning, guys, and welcome to today's video. I am so excited to finally be able to talk openly about my pregnancy. Obviously, I vlogged on Thanksgiving, but even then I feel like I was dabbling in it just a little bit because I was unsure if I was going to post my announcement on Thanksgiving night, and I didn't want to have to cut out a lot of footage. But now that everything is out in the open, I do want to say thank you so much for all of the congratulations and well wishes. I know this is something that has been a long time coming. I think if we didn't have twins the first time around, we would have had a smaller age gap in between kids. And so we are having a 4.5-year age gap this time around, which I'm feeling really comfortable about, and I'll go more into detail about in a later video. But for all of you that have stuck around and waited for me to have another baby, thank you. So I'm excited that I get to talk openly about it now. Now we will commence all of the baby content. I have so many videos planned, and I am doing Vlogsamber, so you guys are just going to get flooded with so much content from me. When I did mention that, you know, things were going on in the background, and that is why I was skipping a few uploads here or there in one of my previous videos, which I feel like November and October were like my worst upload months in a long time, just because I was newly pregnant. I was in those first few weeks, I wasn't feeling well, and it was kind of hard to come up with things to talk about because all I wanted to talk about was my pregnancy, and I obviously didn't or couldn't do that yet. So now that it's out in the open, we can commence uploads every Monday and Friday, and Vlogsamber will start on December 12th and will go through until Christmas. But for today's video, it's going to be quite a few things. This time around for this baby, the boys were a surprise pregnancy. This baby was very much so planned, and we actually did go through a whole trying to conceive journey. It did take us a few months, which I will again go into detail in a minute. But because we actually were trying to conceive, I do have notes on my symptoms all the way up or starting at the beginning of the month that we did conceive. So in today's video, it's going to be a 2-week weight update / like my 2-week weight symptoms, and then a first trimester update. Sorry, just got a text. I am 12 weeks and 3 days. I turn a new week on Fridays. So I am 12 weeks and 3 days. I always get confused. The first trimester ends at 13 weeks. I don't know if it's like through 13 weeks and once you hit 14 weeks, you're in the second trimester, or it's when you hit 13 weeks. But I'm basically done with my first trimester, and these last few weeks, nothing really has changed much. So I figured I would sit down and film my first trimester update. And then I do have some questions from you guys, but I have a feeling that this video is going to be pretty long to begin with and pretty rambly. So if I don't get around to those questions, because the video is getting pretty long, I will film a separate pregnancy Q&A, and then that'll go up probably sometime in Vlogsamber because I do have a lot of my content for the next few weeks planned. So with all that being said, let's jump right into it. So we're going to start with my 2-week weight symptoms. And like I said, it did take us a few months to conceive this baby. It took us, I think, 4 months, 3 cycles of actually trying. 1 cycle we did wind up skipping because Harris was out of town during my fertile week, and we were going to try and like plan around it, but I think we just wound up doing nothing that month in terms of trying to conceive, and that was July. So we started in, I believe, May. I started tracking my cycles back in April, I think a month before we started to try. I have been off of birth control since I had my ovarian cyst issue back in November, where I had the cyst rupture and I experienced ovarian torsion, yeah. I came off of birth control shortly after that to let my body kind of reacclimate. I didn't know if like the hormones were causing the cysts and everything. So it took us a few months, and if you guys saw in my announcement video, I tracked everything in a notebook. I tracked through LH strips, and I'm pretty familiar with my cycles. I'm very in tune with my body. And so it didn't take me long to get the hang of the LH strips. I usually started testing around cycle day 10 or 11, and then would test through until I peaked. And then once the peak started to go down, I would confirm ovulation. But like I said, I'm really in tune with my body, and I literally know the day that we conceived and the day that the egg implanted because I'm just so in tune with my body. But LH strips can be tricky, and sometimes it does take a while for you to become accustomed to them. My cycle, although it was on the longer side, it was always very consistent. I always got a peak around day 15, 16, or 17. So I would ovulate shortly after that. My cycles were always around 31 to like 33 days. It was just very predictable. Even though it was a bit of a longer cycle, it was a very predictable cycle. So that definitely helped with the whole tracking situation and made it easier to follow. But the month that we conceived, if you guys saw my announcement video, I wrote down, like, I'm pretty sure I know the exact hour that the baby implanted. But I wrote down every single day after I confirmed ovulation, which I confirmed through LH strips, but I also felt it. I can always feel it on like what side I ovulate, because I do have polycystic ovaries. I actually wound up going to the doctor on September 13th to just do like an annual exam and get everything checked up on and see how my ovarian cysts were doing, to see if I had anything that could block ovulation or anything like that. And I was told I had polycystic ovaries, which just means I have a lot of little cysts all over my ovaries, and that can make ovulation a little bit uncomfortable because they have to like fight through these cysts. The egg has to fight through these cysts to be released. So I do know that I ovulated on my left side that month, because when I was getting that ultrasound to check up on the cysts, the ultrasound tech told me that I had large follicles forming on my left ovary, and that was about 5 days before I conceived. So everything was looking good. In a normal situation, unless you're doing fertility treatments, you don't have this much insight into your body. I know when you do fertility treatments or like IUI or something like that, or timed intercourse, they do check your follicles often to make sure that you're going to ovulate. But it just so happened that I had my annual exam 5 days before I ovulated, and it kind of was confirmed because we saw large follicles forming on the left side, and then I felt it the day that I ovulated. I had really bad cramps on my left side, so I know I ovulated on the 18th. And then every single day after that, I wrote in my journal that I am pregnant, to just manifest it and put it out there. 4 months is not a long time in a trying to conceive journey. I'm in a bunch of Facebook groups, and that's how I'm so like educated on all these topics. But people try for years and years. So I am very grateful that it only took 4 months. I didn't know like how long it was going to take us, because the boy's pregnancy was a surprise pregnancy. So I didn't really have a lot of insight into my body then, or know how long it took us to conceive, or would take us to conceive. But it took us 4 months. So my symptoms I started logging at 7 days past ovulation. Normally implantation occurs between days 6 and 10 past ovulation. So up until day 7, I really didn't have many symptoms. And even the month that we did conceive, I feel like when you are trying to conceive, a lot of the times you symptom spot and get in your head and read into everything because you think that you're pregnant that month. So even this month, I was so confused. I really wasn't feeling much, and I was almost counting myself out for getting pregnant this month because I really wasn't feeling much in terms of symptoms and being pregnant that early on. But 7 days past ovulation, I had faint cramping and these random twinges that continued for days 7, 8, and 9 past ovulation. And the twinges were not in my uterus. It wasn't like cramping. I just inhaled a bagel. Please excuse me. But it wasn't up in my uterus. It almost felt like lightning crotch, which is something I experienced towards the end of my pregnancy with the boys, where it was like up inside by my cervix, like little twinges, little zaps, little pinpricks. pretty consistently from days 7, 8, and 9 past ovulation. So day 8, I didn't log anything. Day 9, I wrote lightning crotch twinges. And that was the only thing that made me think like, this is weird. I've never experienced this before in my 2-week wait. And it reminds me of pregnancy. It reminds me of towards the end of my pregnancy, what I felt with the boys. So at 9 days past ovulation, which is still very early to get a positive reading on a test, some people get them as early as 8 days past ovulation. 8 and 9 and even 10 days past ovulation are so early to get positives, but I just wanted to see. I felt like if it was going to be positive, it probably would have showed up. And I definitely wish I took a picture of that test, because I took a test at 9 days past ovulation with first morning urine, and it was so stark negative. It was completely white. There was not even a evaporation line to have me stare at and consider maybe I am pregnant. So I was kind of discouraged. I was counting myself out. My friend Catherine and I were on this journey together. We're actually pregnant together at the same time. She is a week after me, a week earlier than me. So she's due a week after me. She also was testing around the same time. Her situation's a little complicated because of like her timing of everything, but we both tested and we both got negative tests. And so I kind of was done with it. Like I said, I was counting myself out because I really wasn't feeling much. But then 10 DPO, so the day after I took that test, I had a zap on my left side in my uterus that jolted me up out of bed. I was trying to fall asleep. It was around 10:15 at night, and I felt this like twist almost in my uterus, and it jolted me up. And I was like, okay, you read all these things in these Facebook groups of people who can feel the second that they implant, that the egg implants, and they have it timed down exactly. And people always say implantation cramping is what they felt, or they get implantation bleeding, which I did not get. But it wasn't even cramping. It was like a split-second zap that made a light bulb go off in my head. And I was like, okay, I really think I am pregnant, and I think I just tested way too early. So I had that 10 DPO at night. 10 DPO during the day, I was still having that lightning crotch, and I was actually having bouts of dizziness at night. If I would lay down in bed and sit up really quickly, I would get super dizzy. And I did have like pregnancy induced vertigo with the boys after I had them, like postpartum induced. So it was reminiscent of that. So then 11 days past ovulation was the 28th. And was it the 28th? I think it was. Whatever day is listed in my video. Days are getting kind of twisted because I feel like it's been so long now since that. I was going out with my friend Casey. I actually did vlog this day and this night, aside from all of this. So I was going out with my friend Casey all day. I dropped the boys off at school. I came back. I was sitting here, and I did have a 2-pack of pregnancy tests. The first one I took on 9 days past ovulation, which was just like a normal pink line test. And then in the same pack, it came with a digital test. And so I had that digital test left, and I was sitting here and it was like 12 o'clock, and I was like, okay, I'm either going to take this test and it's going to be negative and I can count myself out for the month and I can get rid of this test so that I stop thinking about it, because if I had tests in my house, I wanted to take them. So I was like, either I could take this test and count myself out and move on for this month and not have to harp over it anymore and read into these things. Or I'm going to take the test and it's going to come out positive and I'm going to know not to drink tonight. So I took the test, I left it in the bathroom upstairs on the table, came downstairs, unloaded the dishwasher, went back upstairs, and I was so shocked. It said yes on it. You can see in the video. Can't get no false reading on that with the digital. I was just in pure shock because at 9 DPO I took the test and it was negative. So I really genuinely thought it was going to say no. I did not think it was going to say yes. The only thing that made me think possibly was that weird feeling, that like zap the night before. But even then I thought like, you're crazy, you're just reading into things. So 11 days past ovulation was when I got my positive test. And then after that was when I started getting like the telltale symptoms. My cycles are pretty long. I feel like I got my period or was supposed to get my period like a full 4 days after I tested positive. It wasn't until I had the missed period that I started getting the telltale symptoms of the cramping, the sore breasts, the fatigue, kind of. I more so just felt like yucky. It felt like a bad period almost, like the level of cramping that I would have in the afternoon. That's when I started getting those symptoms that people talk about, like the sore boobs. Like people are like, oh, I knew I was pregnant because my boobs were so sore. I got that way after I got my positive test. So I guess 13 days past ovulation or 11 days past ovulation is still considered early for getting a positive, but that is when mine, and clearly you get positives after the egg implants because that's when your body starts producing HCG. So for me, everything makes sense in my head. So then jumping forward to 5 weeks, when I was 5 weeks pregnant, that is when I had a lot of cramping. 6 weeks pregnant was when Ben was in the hospital for RSV, if you remember. So I was in the hospital, sleeping in the hospital bed with Ben when I was 6 weeks pregnant. And of course, that is when I started getting weird symptoms. I again had that like vertigo and dizziness for about 2 days when we were in the hospital. Every time I tried to get up out of the hospital bed, I would get so dizzy, and the dizziness would make me nauseous. Like it would make me feel queasy. It was almost like motion sickness, like car motion sickness is what I felt. That started that week. I started getting a few waves of nausea. I think it was more so like the smell of the hospital and the smell of the food. I had to eat hospital food for 4 days straight. I mean, I could have gotten real food in, but it was only Ben and I in the hospital. And the hospital that we were at was kind of far from our house. So it's not like Harris could come and like bring me food and bring me things. And Jack was also not allowed in the hospital. Like as a visitor, they had to be over, I think like 8 or something like that. So even now, if I think back to like the smell of the food and the things that they brought into the room, like it could make me start to feel sick. So I think that's what the nausea was. And then I also had migraines. I had such a bad migraine when I was in the hospital with Ben. And again, I couldn't leave. I mean, I could have went downstairs to the little like concession thing, and they told me that they sold Tylenol there, but I never wanted to leave Ben alone in the room, so I didn't. So Harris wanted to bring me Tylenol one of the days, and I like stretched it out and made it last. He brought me 4 Tylenols, but I had a really bad migraine 2 of the days that I was there. And then I think like 2 days later after that, I wound up getting a migraine again. Cause I remember I called my doctor and I wanted to like double check that Tylenol was okay for me to take. And since then I've gotten a few more headaches. I hate taking the Tylenol. I feel like when I was pregnant with the boys, I rarely took anything. I hate taking it. I know it's deemed safe, but then there's articles out there that it's not safe. So I try and limit my consumption of medicine and Tylenol as much as I can, but I found that pushing it off and trying not to take it when I should take it makes it 10 times worse. And then I have to take Tylenol for like 2 days later to really get it to go away. So now if I start feeling a headache come on, I take 1 Tylenol and usually that helps. So that was 6 weeks. 7 weeks is when the nausea started full force, and that was so different for me because when I was pregnant with the boys, for being pregnant with twins and having so much more HCG in my body and pregnancy hormones, I really did not feel much. I need to go back and watch my first trimester update for them, but I feel like I didn't have much to say. I remember I flew down to Florida and I was like 7 or 8 weeks pregnant. I don't remember feeling nauseous. I remember feeling tired and having like weird pregnancy cravings. I feel like that was it. I don't ever remember having nausea with the boys. And so that was so different this time around, and it was so hard. It was weeks 7, 8, and into 9 that I had nausea, and thank God it was only 2.5, 3 weeks. I don't know how people do it for their entire first trimester or through into their second trimester. My mom had that hyperemesis gravidarum where you get really sick. She had that with my brother. Like, I could not imagine that. I never wound up fully throwing up, but from the second I woke up to the second I went to sleep, I was nauseous. It wasn't even morning sickness. It was like all day sickness. If I got super hungry, I was nauseous, but then the thought of eating would make me nauseous. If I had to cook later on that afternoon for dinner, if I thought about it too early on in the day, I would psych myself out and then we wouldn't be able to eat what I was going to cook. The only thing that got me through those 2 weeks was eating whatever I craved. I had a day where I ate salsa and plantains because I liked that when I was pregnant with the boys. I had a Pop-Tart craving for like 2 days. I had to eat Pop-Tarts. One day I wanted a Greek salad, and I actually had a Greek salad for like 3 or 4 days in a row, and then I grossed myself out with it. Chopped, Taco Bell, whatever I was craving that day is what I had to eat, and that is when I felt good, was after I ate something that I craved. If I forced myself to eat something that I didn't really want, it would make the nausea 10 times worse. I had to carry around pretzels and saltines. I had to drink either really, really cold beverages or really, really hot beverages. And iced coffee, even to this day, the jugged iced coffee that I get from Starbucks, or that I get from Stop and Shop, that is Starbucks brand, I can't drink that. The smell of it from drinking it during the time, trying to force myself to drink that coffee during the time that I was nauseous, I cannot drink that because it reminds me of being nauseous and grosses me out. When I'm home now, in the mornings, I need to make myself hot coffee with my Keurig. That I can stomach. Or if I get my coffee from somewhere else, like this is from a bagel shop, this is fine. Or if I get it from like Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, I've had from both places, it's been fine. For some reason, just that jug of Starbucks coffee, because I forced myself to drink it when I was nauseous, can't stomach it, don't want it. So I haven't been drinking that. But 7 and 8 weeks, the nausea was really bad, and I was so tired. Around 8 weeks, I was going to bed at like 8 p.m. Around 7:30, I would start like dozing, sitting up in the bed, and then by 8 p.m., I was getting fully into bed and going to sleep. Week 9 is when the nausea started to subside, even into now being 12 weeks. The only time I really get nauseous is if I get really hungry, which now weeks 10 through 12, after the nausea subsided, I'm now on the complete other end of that, and I am starving all the time. I need to eat every 1 to 2 hours. 3 hours is like pushing it. I need to eat like big meals and full meals. I have like 2 breakfasts a day, 2 lunches a day, a big dinner. I am just so hungry now that if I let it get too long in between eating and like I get that pit in my stomach where I'm starving, then I get nauseous. Or if I eat too fast, then I get nauseous. But just in my day, throughout the day, I'm not feeling that constant looming nausea, and I am so grateful for that. When I went to my first appointment at like 6.5 weeks, probably, I think I went to my first appointment. He did prescribe me something. My OBGYN did prescribe me something. It wasn't, what's the super popular one? Why can't I think of it now? He didn't prescribe the super popular one. He prescribed something else. But even taking it didn't do much. I felt like it really didn't help. It kind of just made me sleepy, weird enough. I think I took it like 2 or 3 times, and now it's just sitting in my cabinet. But that brings us up to now. Like I said, I'm so hungry, I'm tired. I'm still going to bed at like 8:30. Ever since the time change happened, like daylight savings, I've been so tired at 8:30. I seriously get into bed and I'm probably asleep around at 9. I do have like frequent urination. That's been a thing since like I was in my 2-week wait, which also kind of piqued my interest. I never wake up to go to the bathroom, and during that time I was waking up to go to the bathroom, so I was like, why do I have to go to the bathroom so much? I'm waking up probably 1 or 2 times a night and having to use the bathroom. I like to drink tea before I go to bed, which is such like a double-edged sword because I love it, but then I have a lot of liquid in me, and then I have to wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. So that's been something I've been dealing with, and my skin has not been great this pregnancy. I have a lot of breakouts on my chin. I have concealer on right now, so you can't really see, but I just have a lot of breakouts on my chin, which is another thing I don't think I ever experienced with the boys. My skin is just not loving me right now. I think it has to do with like the pregnancy hormones and just all of the hormones in my body. But that is it for up until where we are now. This video is definitely way too long to add in all of your guys' questions, so I think I'm just going to hold off. I'll ask you guys for more questions in like a week or so, and then I will go ahead and film a full pregnancy Q&A for you guys and put that up like the first few days. I just tease. And then I will go ahead and put that up on like one of the first few days of Vlogsember. We're all getting over a cold right now. So that is it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed hearing me chit chat about my 2-week wait and my first trimester. You can leave some questions in the comment section of this video. I will screenshot all of those and save those for the pregnancy Q&A. If you didn't get to ask me anything, I did post over on my Instagram and on my community story tab here on YouTube. You can leave your questions on that or on this video, and I will just have like a running log of questions, and then I'll go ahead and film that pregnancy Q&A for you guys very shortly. But that is it for today's video. I'm very excited that I am through the first trimester. I did have another appointment last week and everything was looking great. It's so weird that I can't feel anything yet, like no movements or anything. Sometimes I lay in bed and I forget that I'm pregnant because I feel good. And I can't feel anything yet. It was very cool to see on the ultrasound the little baby swimming and wiggling around just because I can't feel anything yet. I can't remember when I started to feel the boys move around. I would think it would start a little bit sooner this time because they say with subsequent pregnancies you can feel things earlier. I will show you guys my bump. I feel like it is coming out a lot earlier than it did with the boys just because my ab wall is damaged from the twins. It is very weak and I had like the diastasis recti and I do have a herniated belly button. So my belly button's a little funky this time around this early, but I'll go ahead and show you guys my little bump quickly and then that'll be it for today's video. So here's my little almost 13-week bump. I mean, it's definitely getting there. It is definitely starting already. I feel like this is what I looked like at like 16 weeks with the boys. And like I said, I'm almost 13 weeks now with this little baby. So that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.